Baseball players are enhancing their performance, throwing harder, and most importantly, returning to play pain-free. In this video, we're going to show you exactly how they're doing it. You'll learn how posture impacts your game, why your body's dysfunctional, and the strategies to use to fix your own issues. My name's Connor Bedell, founder of Windy City Performance Posture, and I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. In this video, you'll receive a step-by-step breakdown of what posture is, how it impacts pain and injury, and how you can correct your own body. And to be transparent, I do hope that this inspires you to make a change in how you see your body and to want to work with our company to implement these strategies faster. But worst case, you'll leave this video with a much better understanding of how your body really works and how you can go about solving your problems, all for free. Most people, when they think of posture, they think of stand up straight, shoulders back, or don't slouch while you're sitting. This video is going to break the stereotypical belief of what posture is and how it affects you. When analyzing your unique posture, we're comparing it to the blueprint design of the human body. Simply by analyzing 4 photos, it'll tell the story of your body and your injuries. All it takes is 4 photos for us to show you exactly how you're messed up. The only problem, not enough people know about this. Let's say you go to a doctor or physical therapist with a shoulder injury. Almost 100% of the time, they're going to look at your shoulder and say that it's weak, you need to strengthen it. But why is it weak? If you're in the weight room 4 to 6 times a week, are you really weak or are you unstable and misaligned? But then that raises the question, why are you unstable and misaligned? That question is very easily answered. Your posture. Posture is much more than don't slouch and shoulders back. Simply put, posture is analyzing the alignment of your 8 load-bearing joints, your 2 shoulders, hips, knees, and ankles. We want all of these joints to be vertically and horizontally aligned with the one above it, below it, or to the side of it. By comparing your body to perfect posture, we're able to see where you uniquely are most misaligned and start to connect the dots of why your body is dysfunctional and in pain. Form follows function is something that you've probably heard before. Typically, it's in reference to buildings and architecture. However, your body follows the same exact principle. I want you to think of your body as a skyscraper. All of these steel beams are vertically and horizontally aligned with one another. And if they aren't, the building comes crashing down on itself. Your tendons and ligaments are these steel support beams that support the structural integrity of your body. Lacking alignment of these 8 load-bearing joints places stress on these internal support systems until they fail, resulting in pain or injury. But most importantly, bones do what muscles tell them to, causing your posture to be a reflection of our daily movement habits and environment. Rotational athletes that constantly perform one-sided driven movements begin to build up imbalances that in turn pull on the bones, causing alignment changes. These adaptations can be advantageous until they aren't. Perfect posture is unrealistic and not fully necessary as a rotational athlete, but reducing the number of misalignments and compensations that you have will greatly lower your risk of injury and improve your overall movement profiles, leading to enhanced performance. Mobility and stability directly affect one another. Most people who say they want to improve mobility don't truly understand the relationship of how posture is at the heart of the issue. There's mobility joints and stability joints within your body, and they alternate with one another. So the low back and pelvis, as well as the shoulder blade, are vitally important for stability and directly affect the mobility created at the hip, the T-spine, and the shoulder. The misalignments that we have within our body decrease the overall stability that you have from the inability to properly recruit muscles. I want you to think about a 90-90 hip movement for a second and ask yourself, have you ever seen anyone make large gains in internal rotation from strictly doing 90-90s? I'm willing to bet that that answer is a resounding no. The reason for that is just going through a range of motion won't change the reason for why it's restricted in the first place. The low back and pelvis are unstable from the misalignments and the inability to properly recruit muscles. So right now, when you hit an end range of motion, when your body gets tight and constricts you, it's telling you that it doesn't feel stable enough to get deeper into that range because it won't allow you to get into a spot where you could get hurt. However, by improving the alignment and the ability to correctly fire these muscles, it will improve the stability that you have so that when you hit that same end range of motion, your body recognizes that it's stable and gets deeper into the range of motion. So the mobility gains that you're going to make are going to come from being a more stable person. Operating on an improper structure leads to improper patterns, which then adds stress to your body, causing injury. So these misalignments cause movement compensations as a result of being unable to properly activate muscles, which then in turn causes stress to be distributed to improper areas, resulting in pain or injury. So the simplest way to understand posture is through inputs and outputs. The alignment that we take onto the field is the input. The output of the pain or movement limitation that you experience is the result of the input. If we change the input or the alignment that you have, we change the output of chronic pain or your movement. It's really as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. Baseball players, like athletes in other sports, develop similar body types because your environment creates your posture. Baseball players have very similar training methods, which causes similar adaptations or misalignments within the body. The most common misalignments are listed below, and we're going to walk through these. So they are everted feet, valgus knee stress, or essentially standing knock-kneed, as well as externally rotated femurs. We're also looking at anterior pelvic tilt, lumbar extension, thoracic flexion, internal rotation of the shoulder, and thoracic rotation. And then finally, we're looking at ankle dorsiflexion, hip extension, and pelvic rotation. It's a common misconception that elite athletes have good posture and function. This couldn't be further from the truth. Elite athletes are elite compensators and highly dysfunctional. They're able to do things that their body shouldn't allow them to do. However, the wear and tear that they place on their body from these compensations over time is ultimately what leads to the downfall later in their careers. Athletic ability does not mean you are functional, but improving your function will enhance your athleticism. Your body is different than mine, which is different than your teammates, which is different than your coach. But we all have the same blueprint design. The human body is the most complex design on the planet and designed to move in certain ways, but any misalignment will compromise your ability to move. Pain is the only way that your body can communicate to you that something is wrong. Your body is hyper intelligent and is constantly adapting, looking for efficiency. So baseball players have similar body types, but we all have different movement patterns, which is why one size fits all approaches don't get you anywhere. Just because two people have the same shoulder pain doesn't mean that they have the same root cause for that pain. So why would their rehab exercises be the same? Baseball players are biased to all of these similar misalignments, but the degree to which they're present varies from person to person. But most baseball players will have many to all of these issues. Typically, when we see an athlete, they're complaining about nerve pain, back pain, general tightness, or movement restrictions. And we can see exactly why that's happening through their 4 photos through the position of their body. The ability to rotate efficiently and create hip-shoulder separation is directly limited by your posture. We talk to tons of athletes who say, I need to improve my hip-shoulder separation to throw harder, but that's just not true. If you needed a ton of hip-shoulder separation, you would only see hypermobile guys have success in baseball, but all types of movers have success. So are the tight movers at a disadvantage, or what do you actually need to rotate efficiently? That question can best be answered with a case study. There's more components that go into this explanation, but we're going to keep it pretty simple in this breakdown. We were working with this high schooler who, by all accounts, is an excellent mover. However, he took some time off in the fall, and when he started to throw again in the winter, his arm slot and his rotational plane were different. Hence, your environment affects your posture. His environment changed over the fall, which causes movement patterns to change as well. He was opening his front side too soon, and this was due to his posture, which was causing his torso to lean off to the side. His arm slot was climbing, and this resulted in poor command and decreased velo. He was unable to rotate over his front hip and was essentially having to jump out of his back leg to create the rotation. Your ability to rotate is dependent on a very specific sequence, and it works ground up. First, we counter rotate, and from there, we need to fire our hip, torso, arms, and finally our hands. Improper muscle activation will reduce the efficiency of this sequence. So quite often you're going to hear of a player whose front side is opening too soon, And that's exactly what's happening here, is it's an inefficient sequence resulting in movement compensations. By analyzing his posture and the interconnected relationship of the following three components that we're going to discuss, we were able to solve his rotational plane deficiencies. He relearned the correct plane to rotate on, his arm dropped into the ideal slot, and the velo returned. There's three major components that lead to efficient rotation. We're going to touch on them here and then dive into more detail. First is the alignment of our psoas muscle, which is really important because it's the only muscle that connects our spine to our leg. So it's hugely important in creating a stable hip and core. The second is going to be the relationship between the pelvic floor and diaphragm. These muscles should run parallel to one another and act as a vacuum seal that creates intra-abdominal pressure or core stability. Misalignments of this region is going to decrease the overall core stability that we can get and bring us into what's called an open scissor posture. And lastly, we're looking at the alignment of the spiral line, which is fascia, or also known as connective tissue throughout your body. Any misalignment here is going to decrease the overall tension that we can place into this sling, which is going to decrease the amount of hip-shoulder separation that we're able to create. These three components essentially encompass your entire core and are directly responsible for improper movement patterns. One of the biggest misconceptions that we hear in baseball is that you need to generate a ton of hip-shoulder separation to throw hard. You don't. Humans are designed with these crossbody slings that connect the right hip to the left shoulder and the left hip to the right shoulder. These slings are made up of connective tissue called fascia. Think of these crossbody slings as rubber bands. As you rotate, you stretch the rubber band, giving it potential energy to release as you rotate back the other way. Everyone has different levels of tension required for them to move as optimally as possible. So guys that have thicker rubber bands are generally tighter movers than those who are hypermobile. But both types of bodies can and do have success across all levels of baseball. If you're a tight mover and you train to become super mobile, you can actually decrease your performance from getting past an optimal range of motion that's right for you and your body. So let's get really detailed about this, because the last thing that I want you to ponder about rotation is the rotational plane itself. We've all heard of pitchers whose arm slots start to climb in the slot and they didn't even know it was climbing, or a hitter who can't prevent their back shoulder from dipping. What's happening here is your rotational plane is off, but why? There's 5 key muscles to your body to make you an efficient mover: your calf, glute, psoas, trap, and rhomboid. We're going to focus on 3 of them. Your psoas is the most vital muscle in your body because it's the only one that connects your spine to your leg. Its main jobs are hip flexion and external rotation, and this muscle is commonly implicated in anterior pelvic tilt and external femur rotation because of where it's positioned. So this preset of your femur being externally rotated makes it difficult to achieve the optimal level of internal rotation that we need as we're trying to rotate, because your body has more distance to overcome. This muscle not only needs to be rock solid on the back half as we're creating our load, but rock solid on the front half as we're trying to create this lead leg block. Because the load or force that we create on the back half, we want all of that to make it to the front side on the rotation, or we aren't being as efficient as possible. If your backside is unable to access your psoas effectively, you won't be able to load into your hip as well, which means the max force production that you have is lower than what it should be. And that diminished stability out of the back hip is going to cause you to jump out of it rather than staying down and riding through the slope into your front side. So the inability to create proper hip and core stability is going to cause the rib cage to have to flare up. That overall decreases the amount of stability that we have through the core and is going to create further issues up the kinetic chain as we're rotating. So the high schooler that we were talking about was dealing with valgus knee stress as well as externally rotated femurs. And because of this, his back knee was having to collapse too soon, resulting in him jumping out of his back leg and not being able to maintain his hinge as well as he should have. The main problem with the trap is most of us are very upper trap dominant, meaning that we shrug up and we round forward. When that happens, the shoulders hug in or internally rotate, which causes there to be less space at the front of the shoulder, which can oftentimes lead to bicep tendonitis, front of the shoulder pain, TOS, ulnar nerve symptoms, you name it. There's a lot of issues that come from having that shoulder be internally rotated. But the other part to that is when the upper trap is so overactive, we have a really difficult time activating through the low to mid trap, which is the portion of the muscle that we need to create this stable T-spine extension at layback. If we aren't doing that appropriately, the rib cage is going to have to flare up through the similar mannerism that we were talking about with the psoas. So when that rib cage comes up, the intra-abdominal pressure, that vacuum seal that we need, now becomes compromised in the ability to create that, which is going to cause this front side to rip open too soon. The torso and the shoulders start to lean. The arm rises in the slot as well as drags behind us, which then puts more stress into the shoulder and the elbow, but also creates an inconsistency of this release point, decreasing the command that you possess. The high schooler we were working with presented with every one of these issues. The rounding of his upper back and the internal rotation of his shoulder made it very difficult for him to load his scap correctly, which then caused his torso to have to lean off to the side, raising his arm slot. The rhomboid connects the T-spine to the shoulder blade and is responsible for scap load. When the shoulder is internally rotated, it wings the scap out around the rib cage, which over lengthens the rhomboid, giving it a disadvantage as you try to load. This compensation is going to decrease the awareness of where your arm is in space. And if your rhomboid isn't loading your scap correctly, the top of the trap is going to take over to get your arm up on time as we try to rotate, which is only going to make the upper trap dominance that much more prevalent, making it even harder to get into the mid-back to be able to move appropriately and maintain the core stability that we need. So the high schooler that we were working with, because of the internal rotation and the winging of his scap, couldn't load through his rhomboid well enough, which was causing his upper trap to kick on to get his arm up, which then led to his core having to rotate him out, leaning off to the side. And all of these other issues that we're talking about are just domino effects of what's happening lower in the chain. The best baseball players in the world are the best rotators, and they have elite sequences that their body can perform consistently. They're able to get as close to their max force output as possible while being efficient, but improving their posture is only going to allow these gains in force production to be enhanced. We've had the fortune of working with some of the best up-and-coming prospects in baseball, including more than 40 professionals across 11 different MLB organizations, over 7 top 30 prospects across 5 organizations, and over 30 Division I guys, as well as guys across all NCAA levels in high school. Logan Evans is one of the top prospects currently with the Seattle Mariners. And when we first started working with him, he was experiencing low back pain, extreme hamstring and elbow tightness, and an inability to use his glutes and core properly. He was sitting 93 in his first pro ball season after being drafted in the 12th round out of Pitt. His goals were really simple. He wanted to throw harder, have better command, and do it pain-free. When we first started, we took Logan through a posture screening where we found his individual deficiencies, and we were able to attack the root cause that was leading to his pain. Within 2 weeks, his back pain was gone, and within 5 weeks, he was sitting 97. He said that he had never felt this good and was putting less intent into his 97-mile-an-hour throws than where he was when he was sitting 93. Logan went on to be the opening day AA starter for the Mariners in 2024, having an excellent season, and recently made his debut here in 2025. Michael Morales is another rising pro, also with Seattle. And when we first started working together, he wanted to improve his T-spine and hip mobility, his scap load, eliminate the tendonitis he was experiencing at his shoulder, and he felt like his back hip was collapsing too soon during his load. He tried to make some of these adjustments in season where he would force himself to get deeper into these positions like his hinge, only to find that it made his problems worse, because he was having to compensate to get his body to do things that it didn't want to naturally do. Within 1 week, he felt like he was able to sit into his back hip more naturally, which allowed his arm path to clean up, and it made him more explosive. He went on to have an amazing season where he went 13-2 across 149 innings at single A and double A and was named the Mariners pitching prospect of the year. Hopefully after watching this video, you start to see your body from a new lens. If you want to dive into your situation more and talk about how posture can help not only your game, but your body, use the link in the description to book in for a time that's convenient for you. And when we get on the call, there is no pressure to join the program. We want to just talk more about your goals and your situation and make sure that this is the right fit for both of us. Because just like everything in life, if you aren't committed to the process, it's going to be a bad deal for both parties involved. Worst case, you hop on the call, we find out it's not the right fit, and we can point you in the direction of something that we feel is going to help you take the next step forward in your career. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this, and remember to book in your call through the link in the description.